Grand Rising, everyone. I hope everyone's going to have a good day. I know you're going to have a good day because we're going to speak that into existence. Okay? So, this morning's lesson for today, a little hot, so I got to have a fan on. So, today's lesson is going to be talking about the Canon Keepers. Now, with the Canon Keepers, we're going to go into depth of whom actually touched the sacred text, altered the books, and learning more of why it was done, okay, by them, by the hands of man, not the breath of God or any other hierarchy that you put upon the pedestal. So we're getting ready to begin. We're going to go straight into it. Okay. Now, who were the Canon Keepers? The Canon Keepers were the ones who decided what writings would be called the Word of God and what would be burned, hidden, or labeled hearsay. They weren't just scribes. They were, 1, Jewish scribal councils and rabbis. After the destruction of the Second Temple, 70 CE, they closed their scriptures, the Tanakh. Around 90 CE, at the Council of Jamnia Yavne, tightening the Hebrew canon and rejecting books like Wisdom of Solomon, Sirach, Tobit, etc. The second ones is the Roman Church councils and bishops, 3rd and 5th centuries CE. These men were the keepers of the Christian canon, meeting at councils like Council of Nicaea, 325 CE, Constantine Council, didn't finalize but set the stage. The Council of Laodicea, which is at 363 CE, listed what should and shouldn't be read in churches. Council of Hippo, 393 CE, and Carthage, 397 CE, 419 CE, locked in the New Testament list. Number 3, the Catholic Church, Rome, later Vatican. They held authority over the canon for centuries. Even the Protestant reformers, 1500s, simply trended further, removing 14 apocryphal books to get the 66-book Bible. Now what they did, they merged books 1 and 2 Samuel, Kings, Chronicles, used to be 1 each. Split books, Ezra and Nehemiah, were 1. Renamed and rearranged. They cut out writings that were too mystical, feminine, or cosmic, declared others heretical, Gospels of Thomas, Mary, Enoch, etc., and centralized power. Instead of many communities holding many scrolls, only Rome held the official list. Now, why they did it? Because text equals power. If the people had direct access to Sophia, the wisdom, Enoch's star knowledge, Magdalene's testimony, or Hermas' teaching, they wouldn't need bishops, priests, or empire to meditate God for them, or mediate God for them. So the Canon Keepers acted as gatekeepers. They claimed this is the word of God, that is dangerous. Now, in truth, they made a library that serves obedience to church order, not the full awakening of the soul. Why would they want to keep this sacred information to themselves? Of course, again, because of power. They said it already, because text equals power. To control the masses, you must control the mind. It's always been that way for centuries, for eons. If you can control the narrative, you can control the people. And it's clear as day with these religions, that's how they keep people in this binding loop. And people wondering why things are still reoccurring, because you're not getting the full information to push yourself forward, intentionally by these Canon Keepers. Now, the Canon Keepers were not just men with scrolls. And mind you, I said men, which means that woman was even excluded from this decision. Makes you wonder, right? They were politicians of spirits. They dressed themselves in holiness, but they were the editors of power. They weren't protecting God. They were protecting empire. That's why your spirit knows there are gaps in the Bible, because the Canon Keepers, or the keepers of the canon, were also keepers of control. You gotta realize that this is bigger than just trying to hinder information from people. This is why when we talk about how people go directly, like in the book of this and this book and that book, you don't even know the baseline. Where did it come from? How is it that men even had control or access over this? Okay? We always got to get into that, because we're going to also inform, what I'm going to tell you, exactly where this particular information comes from. See, the Canon Keeper is the one that put things into motion, but they had to get the information from somewhere. And we're going to tackle that too. But let's continue. Now, what I'm going to do now is talk to you about the timelines and get a little bit more in depth. The timeline of the Canon Keepers and their cuts along the way. Now, the first is ancient Hebrew scripture, 500 BCE to 90 CE. Israel's writings include the Torah, prophets, Psalms, wisdom books, Apocrypha, and temple scrolls. Texts like Enoch, Jubilee, Tobit, Sirach, Wisdom of Solomon, Baruch, circulated alongside Isaiah, Jeremiah, Psalms, and etc. Different Jewish groups, Pharisees, Sadducees, Essenes, I believe that's how it's pronounced, and Hellenistic Jews held different libraries. Dead Sea Scrolls prove this. The Quran community had way more than today's Old Testament. So not only did they remove these books, these was the ones that this religion or these religions decided to keep in a chokehold and keep to themselves. The blessings, the secrets. Number 2, the Council of Yavne, which was 90 CE, the Jewish canon closure. After Rome destroyed the temple 70 CE, rabbis sought to preserve Jewish identity. At Yavne, they closed the Hebrew canon Tanakh, which equals the 24 books, same as today's 39 OT, which is the Old Testament, just counted differently. What was removed and rejected was the Wisdom of Solomon, the Sirach, Tobit, Judith, Baruch, Maccabees, Enoch, and Jubilees. The motivation behind it was to cut out texts too Greek, too mystical, or too popular outside of Pharisees' control. The next one would be number 3, which is the early Christian era, which is 100 to 300 CE. The first followers of Christ read Hebrew scriptures and the Apocrypha and their own gospel and letters. Early churches read Shepherd of Hermas, Epistle of Barnabas, Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Peter, Acts of Paul, Revelation, Didache, and Apocalypse of Peter. No single canon existed. Different regions use different collections. So, you're starting to see where they took a lot of the teachings, and for each group, they separated, removed, and identified what of the spirituality concept that they was going to take, the scrolls that they was going to take and not use to give to the people, to give them their power. Number 4 is the Council of Nicaea, 325 CE, and it's Constantine's intervention. Emperor Constantine legalized Christianity and wanted unity in doctrine. Nicaea didn't finalize the canon, but it set up imperial control of church decisions. Books with Gnostic or independent teachings began being targeted. They wanted to simplify what type of information they give you, because remember, they still have to give you some, but they don't give you all. A karmic balance. But they knew that if they give you the book and not the ones that really does the change in your life, would be good. So you get some of the word, but you don't get everything. And again, you're being cheated out of that. The 5th one was Council of Laodicea, which is 363 CE. First attempt to list approved books for church reading, listed most Old Testament books, 26 New Testament books, and left out Revelation. The Apocrypha, Wisdom, Sirach, Tobit, etc., already being sidelined. So they already had these particularly sacred books being removed. Remember, this was to get in contact with the body. That, remember what we talked about yesterday, where we talked about Wisdom, Sirach, and Tobit, was all about the body aspect of what they did not want you to learn, and the powers that you have from within, what this vessel here can do in this lifetime. Number 6 is the Council of Hippo, 393 CE, and Carthage, 397 and 419 CE. Locked in the 27 New Testament books we know today. They declared Apocrypha still useful, but secondary. Suppressed heretical texts such as the Gospel of Thomas, Mary, Philip, Hermas, Barnabas, and the Apocalypse of Peter. Number 7, the Middle Ages, the Catholic Bible, 400 to 500 CE. St. Jerome translated scriptures into Latin Vulgate, which was in 382 to 405 CE, my apologies, which included the Deuterocanon, the Apocrypha, Wisdom, Sirach, Tobit, Judah, Baruch, Maccabees. So Catholic Bibles had 73 books, not 66. But still excluded Enoch, Jubilees, Magdalene Gospel, Thomas, etc. Number 8, the Protestant Reformation, 1500s. Martin Luther rejected the Apocrypha as not equal to Scripture. And remember, he was a king too as well. English Bibles like King James 1611 at first included the Apocrypha in a middle section, by 1800s, the Protestants removed them entirely, leaving the 66 books that you have today. Number 9, the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition. The Ethiopian Bible preserves the widest canon, the 81 to 88, which includes Enoch, Jubilees, 1 to 3, Maccabean, which is Maccabees, Shepherd of Hermas, the Epistle of Barnabas, 1 to Clement. This is the closest surviving witness of the original Fuller Library. And I do have, I do own an Ethiopian Bible that actually has these particular books in it. Like they say, this is one of the last few books. The Ethiopian book was the last book that they pretty much had close to the original text, which included a lot of the Gospels, included a lot of these scrolls. But then when it came down to King James, he stripped all that whole book stripped everything. So, let me give you an overall summary of the cuts. Jewish rabbis, 90 CE, dropped 7 to 10 Old Testament books, the Apocrypha, Enoch, and Jubilees. The church councils in 300 CE dropped early Christian Gospels and letters, Thomas, Mary, Hermas, Barnabas, etc. The Protestants, the 1500s to the 1800s, dropped 7 more, which was the Wisdom, Sirach, Tobit, Judah, Baruch, and 1 and 2 Maccabees, from 88 to 66. So let me see if there's any more that I want to. Just want to make sure that I got it. So yes, with this one, I believe I touched on the basics, and you see this is just a very, very quick video, but that was the main point thing. I just want to make sure. Because there was a lot to get down on that one. So yeah, pretty much, as I'm going through, each aspect of religion and what other religions took from this was that, again, they wanted to keep out anything that touches or have you as an individual go from within. Everything was external. They removed the divine feminine intentionally. And it makes you wonder, why did they remove that? Because the divine feminines had more of a broader spectrum and more in depth of it. Again, you need balance. As the men had this, the women had something that kind of intertwined and interweave a lot of the information that you receive today. So when asked to people of religion, because they make it seem like they know everything, and like I said, we're not here to judge, we're not here to do any of that. But at the same time, you have to question, like, why is it that they remove these sacred texts like it was just something to do? Like, it's just something that you should do. Why is it that they limit you for so much, and knowing that the real reason why is because they knew the power in the divine feminine's voice. They knew that each of the women who actually entered their message or had their message to provide, to give, they wanted to keep that one woman. But like I said again, no one ever questions why did they do that. What was the purpose, So, the next part I want to get into real quick is the divine feminine information that was removed. Sorry, give me a second. My apologies, I had to checking on the boys real quick. So, now, why they removed the divine feminine? Because the feminine was the first voice of spirit. Wisdom, Sophia, Asherah, Miriam, Mary Magdalene, all carry authority without permission. The feminine births, nurturers, and restorers. If people honor her, no empire could enslave them. Women, poor, and outcasts will rise, as we're doing today. It's a beautiful thing. The feminine teaches inner knowing, no need for priests, temples, or middlemen. That breaks empires' economy. They wanted a male-only hierarchy, so kings, priests, and popes could mirror each other's rule. In short, they removed the feminine so they could control the body, the womb, and the word. How are you gonna control the womb of another person, or of a woman? How does that make sense at all? We are individuals. You cannot control that. But again, that's where they took the power from. And like I said, as you've seen over the ages of how the things have changed, how women became less in control of themselves and became more male-oriented and became undermen. Women started to begin to lose their identity to their male counterparts, all due to teachings. Now, of course, we're going to go back to who did it. Of course, it was the Canon Keepers, which is your bishops, your councils, and scholars under Roman rule who choose which books stayed. The Council of Nicaea, 325 CE, started shaping the doctrine. Later councils, Hippo and Carthage, finalized the 66 core, rejecting text as feminine or cosmic power. The empire builders, Rome was shifting from many gods, pagan, to one god under the emperor, man. Feminine goddesses, Isis, Asherah, Sophia, were suppressed to centralize power under a male deity mirrored by male rulers. It's crazy. The patriarchal priesthoods, Pharisees, bishop, and church fathers like Tertullian, Jerome, Augustine, they specifically wrote against women teaching, preaching, or prophesying. They branded Mary Magdalene as a prostitute instead of a teacher to strip her authority. You're sitting here name-calling somebody who gave so much essence, and you demean her to a mere prostitute? And this is why they made it okay in certain religions for men to have a multitude of women, have a multitude of this, and the women just had to be obedient. Women to them means obedience. Stay in your place. You have no voice. You have no word. But they did. And the fact that they removed that out, it's a big problem. It's a serious case. How do that look? Now, what were they? They were gatekeepers of empires, not shepherds of soul. They were political engineers using scripture as state law, not spiritual medicine. But I thought the church and state were supposed to be separate. It's funny, right? They were patriarchal alchemists, transmuting divine balance, male and female, heaven and earth, into one-sided rules. So they took the gifts, kept to themselves, Spiritual people alchemize. Spiritual people transmute. But they didn't want y'all to know that. That's a part of you. That's what you are supposed to do when it comes down to situations where you must calm and maintain the emotion, which is the feminine aspect of it. This is why it's always taught to have a balance of not only the divine masculine, but the divine feminine. You need to have both for balance, regardless of what they say. That is just natural. They teach men that you can be emotional, which takes out a lot of the sensitivity, which takes out the feminine aspect of that. It's not bad. We all have emotions. And for them to want men to be on hard and strict all the time, the women is not pushing that. Everybody has been doctrined to think a certain way. The women now becoming more masculine. They taught you that. They set up systems that way for you to be that. Thus they began removing or instilling for men who sometimes were not there for their families to be into oneself. Women to be in oneself. And everything became divided. This is why family structures have broken down so tremendously over the centuries, the generations. And people wonder why. It's crazy when you look at what they took out and how much of an impact it had in our everyday life today. It's nothing small. This is why I said, instead of us being mad at one another, we need to be mad at the powers that be that started all this. Because if everything remained in its sacred order, nobody would think they're above nobody. Everything would be balanced. Everybody would know their place in this world, in this universe. Now, the hidden feminine or feminine, they erased. Sophia, which was the wisdom, and Proverbs, wisdom of Solomon, feminine presence of God. Because again, when we say source, because you need the balance, regardless of what they say. You need the balance. Asherah, the ancient mother tree, goddess of Israel, cut down by kings. Mary Magdalene, apostle of apostles, a visionary teacher. And they label her down to a prostitute. The disrespect. And then you wonder why today, and even in years before, why males look at women a certain way as just objects, because it goes back to sacred teachings of why this happened. This was intentional. This was to make the woman feel this way because, the voice of the opposite sex made them feel scared. They knew the power of the woman's voice. And we're rising again. Thecla baptized herself and preached boldly. Yes, the original female pastor, the ones that they say in sacred texts and docs that women are not supposed to be pastors or preachers. It's a lie. Because as you needed male, you needed a woman's interpretation too. And they looked down on them. Judith, Esther, the full version, and Susanna, women saving nations. So how could we talk about that we want peace? Remember, women are the nurturers, the carriers. We create the balance. Prime example today. When you with your masculine and feminine, with the energies, men who claims to be so bold, when they get sick, they want to be coddled and nurtured by women, right? Because see, you need that balance. The woman not only brings on the earth medicine, but it brings on the natural healing medicine that is still within us. And they wanted to remove that. By a mere hug of a woman could change the energy of somebody. the mere love, the compassion of women. Men always wanted power, power, power. But the women stabilized all of it. Okay, say, yeah, we can do this, but let's ease it out this way. You need the balance. And this is why everything has been topsy-turvy for all these years, because they felt as though that they needed to have power over balance. They need to have control over balance. They scrubbed these not because they weren't powerful, but because they were too powerful. They knew if the feminine was honored, the church would have been a circle, not a pyramid. No throne, no pope, no empire could stand on the backs of silenced women and forgotten war. The more and more I go into my lessons, the more it pisses me off. You know, like it just tells you that they intentionally created the imbalance. So you had your 4 pillars. You removed the pillar that was needed to keep us all in alignment. And a lot of that dealt with us. And then you wonder why it's so much dysfunction in the world today. And how as the generations have gone on, the divine masculine or the male and the female have separated from each other. It's like now it's a power control. It's like now when masculines was up here, the woman was down here now, everything is topsy-turvy now. The woman is taking on the masculine attitude and the masculine is taking on the feminine attitude, but they're not completing because they're not still imbalanced. They just turned everything over. And nobody peeped this. And this is why the divine feminine was needed to create the balance. And the fact that they purposely removed is bothersome. So we're going to go into the lineage of the divine feminine. Now, the ancient mother Asherah, the tree goddess of Israel, called Queen of Heaven. She was Yahweh's consort in early Hebrew worship. Her poles, sacred trees, stood beside altars until kings and priests destroyed them. Her message, God is not only the father, rather source is not only father, but also mother, the root, the womb, and the tree of life. Sophia represented holy wisdom. Sophiam is the feminine face of source wisdom. In Proverbs, wisdom cries in the streets as she builds her house. In Wisdom of Solomon, she is radiant, immortal, and guides kings. Her message, the spirit is feminine intelligence, weaving order into creation. Number 3, the hidden prophets and queens. Miriam, Moses' sister, prophetess, singer of freedom songs. Your hymns, rather. Deborah, judge and warrior, led Israel into victory. A woman led Israel into victory, but you don't give her acknowledgement. And then you wonder why Israel is going through a lot of the things that they're going through. The divine feminine is making herself known. Judah, warrior widow, killed the invader with courage. You're starting to get into the power of these women, the warriors of our time that they intentionally erased. And again, even down to women, y'all didn't question that. Like, they took away everything for you to be submissive and obedient, but you didn't realize that we were warriors in many of our lifetimes before. And as we reincarnate, did y'all realize that your spirit also fought along with them? We going Esther, the full version, queen who fasted, prayed, and saved her people. Susanna was the one who exposed corruption, defended her body as sacred. So the message is, what their message was, women are not background. They are saviors, leaders, and vessels of the spirit. Which means that they could do anything that their male counterpart could do. But the thing is that with both having the same power, bringing them together for people to play their position, their roles, was imperative. It's needed. It was needed and still is needed, but they removed that aspect. The ego of the men who changed and got a hold of this is beyond me, for the most part. Now the Magdalene line, Mary Magdalene, apostle of apostles. She saw the rising Christ first, the risen Christ first. But we already know who Christ is. In her gospel, she teaches the disciples to look inward for the kingdom. Her message, the Christ flame lives in the heart. No temple needed, because you are the temple. Thecla, Acts of Paul and Thecla. She baptized herself. She preached openly, defied Rome's law against women teachers. And her message, authority is spirit-given, not man-given. The mystics and keepers and secrets was the Gnostics, early mystical Christians. Preserved the feminine gospels, hid them in jars at Nag Hammadi. People still took this text from the divine feminine as sacred. And because they were all being destroyed, being non-existent, being hidden, you still had those that kept them close by and hid them away. Because I feel in their heart as they sing, we were going to rise again, whether they liked it or not. The desert mothers, alongside the desert fathers, hermits, teachers, healers. How you doing? Mystics like Hildegard of Bingen and Julian of Norwich spoke visions of God as mother. Repeat that again. Mystics like Hildegard of Bingen and Julian of Norwich spoke visions of Source as mother. We bring forth life into this world. So again, they took out the common sense aspect of it for you not to know that part. Their message, even under empire, the feminine flame cannot be put out. It keeps whispering in hidden places. So when a lot of natural stuff, natural disaster, a lot of stuff is happening, guess who's doing that? The divine feminine is rising and rising fast. Number 6, the freedom carriers, wise women, midwives, and herbalists kept feminine knowledge alive in healing, birth, and song. Indigenous mothers across the earth carry balance of earth and sky in their traditions. Rebels, healers, freedom keepers passed on what priests tried to erase. Hello. Their message: the divine feminine is in earth, body, womb, water. She survives in you, so yes, to the males. Regardless of how you try to erase the woman, you cannot, because you came from one. Before you are formed into your gender, you start off as feminine. Wow, right? This is why they have to wait a certain time and they cannot tell off the bat what the gender is. Because when you start off as an embryo, you're coming in feminine form. And as you grow in the womb, you develop the body. The divine feminine lineage is like an underground river, right? Empire covered her with stones, but she never dried up. She flowed through Asherah, Sophia, Miriam, Deborah or Deborah, Judith, Esther, Susanna, Magdalene, Thecla, the mystics, the healers, and now through us. We're beginning to remember our four sisters, our foremothers. As they say, the forefathers, we're remembering our foremothers. The one who paved the way and got no acknowledgement for it. Let's go to the mothers today who take care of household by herself, taking care when the masculine leaves, and have to try to create that balance to make sure that they have both aspects. They have the sternness, but the nurturing side of them. We create the balance. Which is why when it comes down to things, and if man leaves, we can still maintain. Males, not saying that they can't, but women do it naturally. It becomes natural to us because this is what our foremothers embedded in us, because we are them. We reincarnate them, we reincarnate into them, and we receive their energy, they receive their teachings. We've been here. They were the face, and they led us to move. I'm not going to make this video too long, but I just want people to understand the erasure of the divine feminine can be wrote out in books. But in the universe, you can't write her out. You can create life without her. She instills a certain part of you. Like, women are such a beautiful essence and has such a beautiful energy. Without women, you cannot stabilize in anything. You need to have both. So when the men now say, oh, the women became more masculine and the women say the men came more feminine, that's because y'all switch y'all roles. Instead of y'all balancing out both sides. It's both of y'all. It's not just one, it's not just the other, it's both. And the way how they put it in influence as far as entertainment, they use your entertainers, they use your elite, they use your people to influence your mindset. Women's sexuality is not a bad thing, but it needs to be maintained. Overly exposure is proving more of what they're trying to put out there as women being prostitutes. So they're pushing their agenda, but they're not pushing that sexuality is a beautiful thing. That is your sensuality part. Both sides have that. But it has to be at a balance. And every time I see this, it makes you wonder, but it gets you upset. Because how dare you not acknowledge that? And for the men that decided to erase this, you didn't bring yourself on this earth, so you're even disrespecting your mother. You must have really hated your mother. Because you didn't just spawn here, or all you council people, all you Canon Keepers. Y'all didn't just spawn here. So you disrespect the mother of mothers? You disrespect your mother? How do these people live with themselves is what I want to know. Because forget just removing the text. Oh, is it that you honor your mother, but everybody else should not? People should treat them disrespectfully. And then you wonder why the women that even during slavery time, how they demasculated men, the butt breaking, and then they had the women to watch. You know, they know what that did. So not only did they break down a man, they broke down the woman as well. And then they threw this book at you and it was okay. You didn't question, you're not mad. And I'm saying, as I'm going through this, I'm like, why aren't people mad about this? And they're still following a text that enslaved you in the first place. In all aspects. This is why certain genders of people kept the sacred knowledge to themselves. Because like I said, we're going to talk about those who provided them with the information in the first place. Yeah, it was our people. Yes. Yes. It's about time for y'all to get exposed too. Because again, every time I hear their names, every time something comes upon, because like I said, it's not all, and I don't want to put them all in a box, but for some reason, it triggers me to hear their names, and I'm like, and like I said, it's not all, because a lot of them kept the text sacred and they hid it. But for those who gave it away for power, ego, greed, and fear, knowing that you had power within to move things, but because you wanted to get into this realm with those, they forgot that they would still be here as they up here. This comes to a lot of your black elites today. Whether you're rich or whatever like that, you are still under them. You can have all the money in the world, but you're still under them. Because you gave that part of you away. And you smile about it. I don't know why people are not more mad at these celebrities who throw up hand signals and do the practicing, but in the wrong way. And I don't want to go into over 60 minutes, but this is the last thing I want to say as far as with the Divine Feminine and how the Canon Keepers removed her. Just very quickly. So the Divine Feminine lineage in words. In the beginning, she was Asher, the tree of life, the mother beside the father. She worshipped openly until kings and priests cut her down, her poles, and buried her name. Then she appeared as Sophia, holy wisdom, crying out into the streets, building her house, guiding the righteous, radiant, and eternal. She was the mind of heart of God made feminine. She walked in the bodies of the prophetess and queens, Miriam, who sang freedom songs after the Red Sea split, Deborah or Deborah, who judged and led armies with her wisdom, Judith, who struck down the enemy when men lost courage, Esther, who fasted and prayed until she saved her people, Susanna, who stood innocent and forced corruption into the light. When Christ came, she rose again in the Magdalene line, Mary Magdalene, first to see when Christ has risen, first to preach resurrection, teacher of the inner kingdom. Thecla, who baptized herself, preached boldly, and proved that spirit gives authority, not men. When empires silenced them, she moved underground into the mystics and hidden ones, which were the Gnostics, who buried gospels in the sand of Egypt to protect them. The desert mothers, who prayed, taught, and healed away from Rome's eye. The visionaries, like the Hildegard of Bingen and Julian of Norwich, who dared to say, God, source is our mother. When the church branded women as witches, she kept breathing in the wise women, the midwives and herbalists, who guarded the womb's mysteries in earth's medicine. While colonizers built crosses of empires, she was never born. She lived in the indigenous mothers, the keepers of land and balance, the ones who carry Earth's memory in their ceremonies. And now she rises through us, the divine feminine. Our voices are being heard, ain't it? Because we are a part of the remembering ones, the bloodline of truth keepers, the voice, again, she rises through us, so we must do our part while we're here. This is not light work. We are here for a reason. We shifted for a reason. We're remembering what happened. And no, we are not happy about it. The 13th tribe rises. And the head of it, the divine feminine. Now, the divine feminine was never destroyed. I'm sorry. The divine feminine was never destroyed. She was only hidden. Like a river underground, she has flowed through every age, through mothers, prophets, teachers, healers, and rebels, until this moment when she rises and surfaces through us. Now we're going to end it on this note before we hit the 60 mark. It says, why they fear the divine feminine so much. Why? I'll tell you why. She makes you sovereign. The divine feminine teaches that the kingdom is within. No priest, no temple, no middleman. If people believe that empire's power structure will collapse completely, and it's already in progress. 2, she births and renews. Women carry the mystery of creation in their bodies. Rome's wanted life and lineage controlled by law, not womb. If the womb stays sacred, slavery, conquest, and force rules couldn't thrive. Number 3, she embodies balance. Feminine wisdom, Sophia, balances masculine law with compassion. Without her, religion became one-sided. Judgment without mercy, order without nurture. Balance would have made empire impossible because empire feeds on extremes. Through chaos, power is formed. You must create chaos to keep control. Number 4, she empowers the marginalized. Feminine stories like Judith, Susanna, Esther, Mary Magdalene, Thecla shows that the overlooked and the oppressed carry salvation. Rome needed a top-down chain of command. If women, slaves, and poor people knew they carried divine power, they would rise. Which is why we're trying to teach you, and which is why we're trying to get you to be removed from these books. You keep yourself weaker. Number 5, she holds the cosmic knowledge. Books like Enoch, Jubilees, Wisdom of Solomon reveals angels, stars, divine time. Rome needed people tied to earthly rulers, not heavenly calendars. Feminine wisdom kept humanity in rhythm with the cosmos beyond empire's clock. Number 6, she heals outside of systems. Herbalists, midwives, prophetess, Magdalene herself, all offer healing without priests, doctors, or empire's permission. That threatened the control of economics and political tie to religion again, but they're supposed to be separate, right? And number 7, she reveals God as both mother and father, not just one. If God is also mother, then no man can claim to be sole image of God. That breaks patriarchy at its root. The truth of the matter is, Rome didn't just fear women. They fear the divine feminine current that flows through women and men. They hate that balance. They fear sovereignty, balance, compassion, and cosmic law because those powers will make empire possible. So they cut out of scripture, demonized her in practice, and buried her in history. But she was never destroyed, only hidden. And now, the divine feminine rises again through those who remember. So I'm going to leave it on that. The Canon Keepers, yes, they kept a lot of information out, yeah. But that divine feminine was the impact because it created the balance. They made men feel like you're weak if you feel sensitivity. No, you're supposed to feel that, men. Women, too masculine. No, you're supposed to feel that, women. You just need the balance of both because source is both. Grand rising to all the flames, the divine, masculine, and feminine. I'm only speaking truth. Ashe.